Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Apologies, I've been away for a little while. I'm working on something kind of special, which I'll tell you more about in the coming weeks. But for today, we're going to revisit the topic of Figma and Figma prototypes, and more specifically, embedding them within our SharePoint sites to create a seamless user experience that's rich and engaging. So ultimately, by the end of this video, you'll be able to create something that looks a bit like this, which is pretty cool, right? So I demonstrated this process prototype in a previous video about Figma, and a lot of people have asked that I show how to build it. So we're going to do that in this video, okay? We're going to build it start to finish. And what we're also going to do is, well, Figma has updated the embed code it produces to allow us to embed these things within SharePoint. And with the updated embed code, the little bit of code that we were putting in to hide the Figma UI, so it's very seamless in your site, no longer works, okay? But some good people have suggested to me a new piece of code that does work. Now, I tried to use this code and I nearly broke my brain and had a tantrum trying to figure it out because it wouldn't work for me, basically. And it took me a while to figure out that within Figma, there's actually two places we can generate an embed code. One of them will work with this new code to hide the UI, and one of them will not. So we're going to have a look at that, and I'll explain it exactly because that might have been very clear to understand what I just said. Bottom line is we're going to make it work. So a quick note is that if you created prototypes before in the past, which is before this update was made, they're probably still going to work. I think it'll work. At least it has on my tenant. It's just really for the new ones you create, you want to take these new steps to make it work for you. So like I said, we'll build a prototype, we'll embed it, and hopefully this will help some of you guys out there, maybe even inspire you guys to do something a bit creative as well. It's always good to add in these new experiences within SharePoint when we can and when it makes sense to do it, of course. So with that being said, let's get into it. This video is sponsored, well, by me and the SharePoint Intranet Site Builder Masterclass. This is a course that I've put together for anybody who has inherited an existing intranet site or indeed wants to build a brand new department intranet site. The course focuses on the most common requirements I see again and again in the intranets that I build, and it acts as a step-by-step guide on how to create them. There's a big focus on user experience within this course, and I've designed it so you don't have to be a techie to take it. This course is aimed at any business user who wants to up their game within SharePoint. So if you're interested, there's a link below along with a tasty discount to get you going. Now back to the video. So let's start this off within Figma. So here we have a blank Figma file, and the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a canvas, okay? Because essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to build, if you think about PowerPoint, it's kind of like that. We're going to build a slide for each of the steps in our process. And we'll also have a page at the start of the process, which is the main navigation. So what we'll do is we'll create our first canvas. So we'll come down here, and I'll stop using the word canvas because the right word is frame. So we'll create a frame. We'll click the frame button here and just drag it out. And now we're going to come over here to the layout and we're going to enter in the size that we want. Now the size I'm going for is 1200. So type in 1200. And then the height is going to be 675. Okay, so that's the canvas that we're working on. So we'll come over here and we'll just double click where it says frame 1 and we'll call this home just to keep things nice and organized, okay? So really what we want to do in here is we want to build out what that process image looks like, okay? So let's have a look at one I prepared earlier, which is like this. So we're going to basically replicate this, and I'll show you exactly how I build it, right? So basically we've got a number of circles, some arrows leading to them, which indicates the process. And then we've got a return loop here, which comes back to here, and it's all pretty standard, straightforward stuff. So we'll come back over to our blank file, and what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to this shape tool, and what we're going to do is we're going to select the ellipse, and I'm just going to draw one in here like that, and then I'm going to draw another one here. I'll draw another one here, and you can use these guides to keep you honest and in line. So we come out something like that, and we'll arrange it now in a minute so it's nice and even. So we know it's something like that, okay? So what we can do is we can select all of these guys in here, and up in the right hand side here, we'll click these three dots and we'll say distribute horizontally. And now they're nice and evenly spaced, and we can select them as a group. And when we see that little line in there, we know we're dead center. Okay, so that's nice. So then what we can do is we can add a little bit of color to these guys. Now you obviously pick the colors that work for you. I know my colors, so I'm going to say I'm going to make this fella purple, and I'll also make this fella purple. So I select the shape, come over to where it says fill, and you can either paste in the code like I have in here, or you can click the color and you get a standard color picker to choose what you want. So that's what I'll do there. And then I want to get my other colors. So I'm going to just come back to here, and I know this orange is this, and this is the code for it. So I'll select that, back into my file here, into my fill, select it, and there we're good. And I'll just do the other two guys here. So we have my infamous pink, pop it in here. Perfect. And last but not least, this other greeny color, pop it in here. Like that. And now very quickly, you know, starting to come together, we have the dots that represent parts of our process. Now we want to get a line that connects them together. So we come down in here where our shape is, the little drop down beside it. And we've got a nice little arrow option here. So we'll select that and we'll just draw one over here. Something like that looks good to me. And now we would just want to format this arrow. Okay. So while the arrow is selected, we can come over here. Okay. And we can select the weight of the arrow. So if we want to make it thicker, we could do that. I'm going to leave it on 3, for example. Below here where we have none and line, that's just what the end is. So I'm going to use the triangle arrow and I'll set the other end to be round like that. And now we want to make it a dashed line. So what you do is you come up here to these options in here, and where we have stroke style, we can pick a dash. Okay. Now I like to have kind of rounded edges on my dash. I think that looks kind of nice. If you want to increase the spacing and things like that between the dash, you can just increase that there. And that looks great for me. One thing I might do is I might change the color of my line, so the stroke. So I'll make it a little bit not so black, kind of like anthracite to be fancy. So when we have that, we have it in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste, hold shift to drag it over, and then I will get that in here and that looks good. Copy and paste again, hold shift, bring it over here. And what you can do is you can right click on your arrow and you can say flip horizontal, and that's going to put it back this way. And then we can just reposition it. Looks good in there. Copy and paste again and bring it over here. Okay. So now we have our lines going the wrong way, right? So our arrows are going the wrong way. So all we do is we come in here and we say, well, that side should be rounded and that side should be the triangle arrow. And we'll do the exact same here, okay? So this is going to be round and this is going to be our triangle arrow. Straightforward so far, right? Now we want to have our line that comes back this way. So in this case, what we can do is we can come down here and click the pen tool and we can roughly position it here. And we know it's going to come to here. And we know it's going to come roughly to here and to here, but we can move all this now in a minute. So we have that. Now just press escape to get rid of that, escape again, and we're back to here. So now we can say, right, well, I want the stroke of this one to be 3 also. We want the dashes in here. So we'll select the options in here and we'll change this to dash, and we will increase that maybe to something like that. Give it the round, and that looks pretty good. Now we want to have a radius in here. Well, I do anyway, because I like the look of the radius. So I basically select this kind of shape in here, and up here where I have appearance, I have an option to include a radius. So I will just increase that and it'll give me that in there. And then we can just add our arrow. So we'll put our triangle arrow here and we'll put this to round. And I might just change the stroke to show that it's kind of an optional step or secondary process step. So I will put it in something like that. And that looks pretty good. So now we have the kind of process map. Then we'll just add in our icons and a bit of text to bring it to life. So if we come back to our example, we have these icons in here, which is grand. And we have our labels for our process steps. So icon wise, you can use anything you want. If you have icons ready, that's brilliant. I use this Icon Sacks icon library, which has so many icons in here, more than you could ever need. So it's my go-to for that. So that's where I've got these from, and I'll put a link to where you can get this Figma file yourself so you can use it. For now, for the sake of time, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these icons from here because I kind of have them ready. So I'll come in here, paste my icon wherever it came. It's down here. And I'll bring it to here, center it in there. And what I will do, so this all acts as one thing, I'm going to select the icon, shift, select the circle, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to say group selection. So now this is one thing, you can drag it around as one. So that's perfect. So I'll just bring in the rest of my icons the exact same way. So now I have all my icons in like this. And now we just want to put a label beneath to name each step in the process. So I'll come down here, I'll select the text tool, I'll pop it in here, and we know our first one is called research. So research comes in like this. And now you can just format this text again to whatever suits you. In the typography section, the font here is Inter, but I tend to use a font called Sierra Pro. I kind of like it. And I'll set that to bold. And then I'll just might increase the size of it. So maybe 18 looks good. Now you can do other stuff to text in here. Again, if you select the options, we could come in here and we could have it as uppercase. So that would do that. So I'll put it in here. I might just center align it. So then you can just copy and paste that, bring it over here, and we'll rename this one to ideation. Perfect. And then we'll just do that to the same as the other ones. And what I might actually do is change the font weight to black so it's nice and stand out. Okay, so I'll just rename the rest of them. So we have all our labels in like this, and I might actually move these guys below the icons here for more consistency. So I just move this out of the way. So I select it, pull it down, which is fine. I'll select these two guys here, and I will also pull them down. So we have our process that looks like this. And what I might do is move the whole thing up a little bit more in the canvas. So I'll come and drag all of this together, and then I'll hold shift and just move it up slightly. So that's it. That's the first slide. That's what people are going to see when they land on the SharePoint page that we've embedded this in. And the idea is then they can click into these, which will navigate them to the other slides, effectively slides that we have in our prototype. So you're with me so far? So good. All right, excellent. So now what we'll do is let's come back to our example, and we're going to build this slide in here, and I'm going to show you how to add, buttons and have it so that when you move from one to the other, we get a nice little animation. So let's do that. So we'll come back over here to our file, and what we'll do is I'll just zoom out a little bit, and we're going to select this one here, and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it, okay? So this is going to be our next slide over here. So we'll work from here. So what do we want to do, right? So we want to figure out, well, what's just the kind of format or layout we want for the detailed view of each of these process steps. So looking over at my example here, well, I have the title so people know where they are. We have a brief introduction about it. In my process, I want to basically provide people with assets that are going to help them with the process. So it might be a stakeholder map in terms of research and some other linked item in here. And this could be to anything, basically. It's a URL that we're linking to at the end of the day. So it could be a document or another page or something like that. All of that is absolutely fine. So we'll have that, and then we'll have some key call outs of the process in here. So the goal, the approach, and the outcome. And then we'll provide some navigation to get us back to this area in here, okay? So let's build that, and then I'll show you how we start to animate it and bring it to life. So back over here, what we'll do is, well, basically I don't need any of this stuff in here. So I'll get rid of that, get rid of this arrow as well. And what we can do is we can drag this fella over here, a bit smaller, and put him up in the corner. And we can do the same for research here. And what we'll do is we'll increase the height or the text size of research. Something nice and big like this, okay? Perfect. So this is our research. And then we just want to add in our text. So we could just select the text tool here, put in here, type away, blah, 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 blah. And then you're just going to format it, obviously. So like you'll probably bring this back down to 18 like you had on your previous slide. And black is probably a bit heavy, so we'd change it to bold. And then we just put in our subtitle. So I'm just going to copy the text I have here, copy that, bring it over to here, pop it in, and it's all wonky. So I left align it for 1. That's good. Position it there, zoom out a little bit, come right to the end, and I'll just drag this back in. That'll bring it to, something a bit easier. Now it's obviously taken the formatting I put on these guys, which has everything forced into basically all caps. So while the text is selected, I'll come over here and I'll just turn off that all caps or the uppercase, and I'll just say as typed. So we get it like this, which looks pretty good. Okay, as for the buttons, we'll leave them just for a second. What we'll do is we'll have a look at the bit that is nice and fancy. So to demonstrate, if we play the prototype that we had here, when we click on research, we get this kind of twirl animation effect, which looks pretty nice, and it's actually ridiculously easy to do. So I'll show you how it works in principle, and then we'll add the design, okay? So what we do basically is we want to add in that shape, that big rectangle shape. So I'll come down to the shape tool and I'll say rectangle, and I'll basically draw the rectangle that I want. So it's something like that in here, okay? And I want it the same color as my purple here because we're color coding. So when I come in here, I'll see colors I've created already or selected already, but you can also use the color picker and just select that like that. Okay, so we have that like that. Then we can increase the radius of the corners. We can just drag that in. It's the exact same as the option we used in here before for our line. So we set it to 30, seems fine. So to make this animate into place, right, what we need to do is we need this shape to exist over here. So that as we transition from one to the other, the shape kind of transforms as we do it, right? It'll make sense when you see what I'm doing, okay? So I have my shape here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it, okay? Back over to our initial slide, select it, and I'll paste my shape, okay? So now we have the exact same shape here and here. So if we left it like this, as you transition from here to here, shape didn't change basically, so it won't animate. But if we wanted to animate, what we can do, right, is, well, let's rotate this around, okay? So we get that rotation effect, and then let's make it a hell of a lot smaller, right? So we'll make it tiny, right? We'll make it really small. And what we'll do is, so it comes from the center, we'll just leave it in the center of our slide, hidden behind this fella, right? And over in our layers panel, we'll take that circle and we'll bring it right down to the bottom, okay? So now it's hidden there, okay? So when someone sees this, they're not going to see it, but it's there. And what that means, right, is if we make this a prototype then, so what we can do is we can select the home here, okay? And we can turn the tab from design into prototypes. That gives us different options because we're in prototype mode, okay? And what that will allow us to do is we can select this guy here and we can basically, where you see the plus here, pull that over to here. And basically what we're saying is when someone clicks that shape, right, we're going to navigate to this guy over here, and under animation where it says instant, we want to change that to smart animate, because that's going to animate the change in orientation and position and size of the shape. Okay, so you got all that done, just click outside of here, and what we could actually do is let's rename this one here to research. Okay, right, so we've done that. So we created this slide, we created this slide, right, we created this shape here, and we put it over here, made it small and twisted it, and then hid it behind this. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to say play. Don't mind the black background, we'll get rid of that. But if now we click research, we can see that we get that lovely animation, okay? Because it's transforming the shape as it is in one slide into the next. So you can do lots of cool stuff with that, right? This is a basic example of it. So that's all we kind of got to do. And what we might do is we might get a way to get back here, so it makes playing with the prototype a bit easier, so we can create a button kind of effect. Or actually what we might do for this example is create a little X, okay? So what we can do is let's select our rectangle tool, and we will zoom in so you can see what the heck I'm doing. Go back into design mode, and we'll draw a square over here, something like that. And I will just make it a little bit lighter gray. And then what we can do is we can get a line and hold shift, and you'll get a kind of 45-degree angle. Let's make all of the ends round. We'll increase the weight, something like that. Get this, Control C, Control V, and then flip horizontal. And then we have an X, and then we can select this and select this. And then we can right click and we can group, okay? So now that's a nice little shape we have there, and we can bring it over here. Okay, if we really want to be cool, what we can do is you can go selection colors, and we can set this to purple. And now we're so on brand, it's criminal. Okay, so click back into prototype, we select the shape, and then we can just pull this and we can link back to here. Okay, so now we've got a loop. Okay, we've got a way to get from here to here, and then from here back to here. So if we select home again and we say play, what we have is I can click research. Brilliant, I find all about research, great, done with that. Click this, and now I'm back to here. And then you're just going to repeat that basically for each of the other slides and add in any other content you want. Straightforward enough, right? So let me just copy and paste in this stuff in here. Now, with this stuff, there's nothing special happening here. This is just text and some icons that I created. So I think you know how to do that now. You just basically do the same, if you even want the box in the first place, right? So I'll select all of these guys, come back over to here, and I'll just paste over here and drag it into place. And that looks like that. Okay, so that is pretty good. And now if you wanted to do the next one, easiest way to do is select the research one, come back into design, Control C, Control V, copy and paste. Okay, so now we have this in here, and you see prototype has retained, right, all of the links. Okay, so that's great. But what we want to do is we want to update this one. So now this is not going to be research, this is going to be ideation. So I can essentially delete that guy from there. I'll copy this guy, and then over in the research one, I will paste. Okay, and that comes in like this. And if you want to be the exact same as this guy, we can select this, look at the dimensions, 64 by 64, thereabouts. So we'll do the same. I'll just maintain that relationship. So 64, we'll bring that fella over here, and now we'll relabel this to ideation. Something like that. Okay, and then we can obviously just recolor this guy. So I'll select that rectangle, I will make it a orange color, which is great. And what we want to do is we want to select this, copy it, come back over here so we have the exact same thing happening with the animation. So I'll just rotate it, and then I'll make it really small, bring it over here, and then we'll just send it to the back again. Okay, so this can come down here, I'll drag it down. So it's hidden here, okay? Okay, so that's nice and hidden there. And then we just go to prototype, and then we say when someone clicks ideation, we want them to come to this slide. And then when they click the X, we want them to come back here. Everything else remains the same. Starts to look a bit like a spaghetti Western, but you get the idea, right? So we'll come to home and we'll just test it. We'll click play. We can see if we click research, that works as expected. X brings us back. Ideation brings us here. And the X brings us back, and we'll change the color of that X. So there you have it. So it's really simple as that. And then you just obviously repeat that for prototype, validate, and handover. Okay, so I won't bore you with having to watch me do it for the other three steps in the process. Exact same as what you've seen me do for research and ideation. So that's that part of it. The next part of it is, well, you know, if you want to provide resources within your process, maybe it's learn more, or look at this document, or look at this template, we can do that. And so the way we'll do that is we'll create something called a component within Figma. And that's basically, we can create this button or this tile, and it can have a hover state, and it can have an interaction with it. So we'll do that. So the handiest way I find to do this is to start off by just build a button the way you want it to look within the tile itself. So we'll start off here. I'll come down to the shape and I'll select a rectangle, and I want my button to be somewhere like this. And I will come to the radius here and I'll just increase that maybe to 15, I think looks pretty good. Okay, what I will do is I'll create a stroke. Stroke is just an outline. Okay, so I'll come in here and I want the stroke to be my purple color. And then I'll set the fill then to be white. Okay, so we have this outline in here, and I know I'm going to want some text in here. So we could say, what's the title of our resource? So we could say stakeholder map, and we can just basically bring that in here so it fits nicely. And then we might just put an icon in here to indicate that it's a document. So in my example, I have this icon in here. So I will just grab that. You could use anything you want. I'll come over here and I'll paste it. Okay, so that's going to be our download or our kind of view the resource option. So now we have the look of it, right? We need to turn it into a component and get the hover state and all that good stuff. So what you can do is you can grab the whole thing, okay? Bring it down, just drag it off your canvas here, or your frame, I should say. And what you're going to do is, while you've got it all selected, okay, you come up here to this kind of 4-dot icon and it says create components. We're going to click that. And now we've got this component, and we can just call it a resource option. Anything you want, really. So we have that in there like that. So now we click that, okay. And then over here, we've got an option to add a variant, okay. A variant is just like an alternative way for it to display. So I'll click that, and now we get this in here, okay. So now what we can do is we can select this one, and we can style it as how we want it to look if it's being hovered on, okay. So I'll select this, and where I have the purple color, I'm going to change that to white, okay. And where I had the white color, I'm going to change that to purple. So we're kind of inverting things, and the text can also go to white. Okay, so we have that. So what we want to do is we want to name each of these different variations, right? So I'll select this, and over in properties, I'll select this, and property 1, well, that's actually going to be the state, right? Because we've got default and we've got hover. So we can do that, right? So then what we can do is we can click this fella, and you hear here where we have state, that's what we just renamed it. We can click this down and we can rename variant 2, right? So we say rename, and we'll call this hover. Okay, so now we have these 2 variations of this. And then what that will mean is, now bear with me, okay? So we come to assets over here, and we say local assets 1 component. That 1 component is the one we created, okay? So what we can do is we can drag that over here, okay? Because this is a reusable thing now. So we can drag that over here, and in prototype, okay, we could say add an interaction. Okay, so I say plus, and the interaction can be while hovering, okay? What do I want to do? I want to change to, and we can change it to our hover state. Okay, so that's good. So what we can do is we can play that, and you'll just see how it works. So now when I have this, come over here, I hover, and it changes color. And that's kind of the basics of these prototypes to make them interactive, okay? We can always X and come back to here. And then to finish off this one here, what we want to do is we have the hover state, but we want the hover state to actually do something. So I can again select this one, and I can add another interaction. So I click the plus here, and I'll say on click this time, whereas it was on hover before. So on click, what do I want to do? Well, I want to open a link, and it's in here where you'll just type in the link or paste in the link, which could be to a document within SharePoint, or it could be to any URL in the whole world, really. When you put in the URL and you click that button, it's going to open it. And that's how that really works. So we could have our stakeholder map here, and I'll just stick it back into design for a sec, and I could drag another option of this out over here. And then if I wanted to just keep double clicking, and I could say this is now going to be a research plan. Okay, and then again, I would select that. I would put it into prototype, add my interaction, which is going to be while hovering. I want you to change to the hover state. Perfect. And then I could say add another interaction, which is on click. I want you to go to the other link, to the other resource. So you build it up that way, and it's pretty simple. So that's how you can do that. Now, obviously I'm kind of big on my color in here, so I don't want purple buttons on an orange or yellow slide. How could that ever be possible? So what we need to do is we can create basically a variation of this for each of the colors that we have, okay? So if we want to do that, what we do is we'll select this and we'll say plus, okay? And that's going to give us another option, another variant basically in here, okay? So basically I'll select this guy here, I'll make sure I'm in the design tab, and now I'll style this for an orange slide. So basically where I have the purple, I now want it to be this orange color, orange or yellow, I don't know, orange to me, I suppose. So I'll do that. Okay, so now what we can do is we can add in a property. So I'll come in, I'll say I want another variant, and this is going to be called color, and I'll create the property. And now what I can do is I can say, click on this fella, and I can say the color here is I'll add new, and this is going to be purple. Okay, so this is purple and a default state. I'll come to this fella. This is hover, and it's also purple. But I can click on this fella and say this fella is going to be default, right? Color is going to be orange, okay? And then I can click this fella and I click the plus again, and I want to create another variant of this. So what I'll do is I'll select this, make sure I'm on the design tab, and where I have white, we're going to change it to orange. Where I had orange, we're going to change it to white, and we can make the text also white. So then I'll select this fella, and now I just need to set his property. So this is going to be hover, and now we're going to be orange. So now I have all these variations, right, which is pretty cool. And what that means is then I can come over to my research slide. I can drag this fella over here. Okay, now it's purple at the moment, but what's really cool is now I can come up and say, well, actually, I want this one to be orange. And now we get the orange. How cool is that, right? So we do that. So we basically create different variations for each of our colors, and it means we can pop them on here, and everything looks brilliant. So that's it, at least how I built this one, okay? And next we're going to look at how we actually embed it on the site. But you can follow this, use the same principles, but design your process as you want it to be. Okay, so now we're going to get into the embed part of this thing, right? So let's assume now at this stage you've created your prototype, okay? You've connected it all up, you've got all your slides, and you're ready to go. So what we might do is we'll come over to the SharePoint site, because there's a step we got to do in there first. So over on our site, what we're going to end up is something like this, where we have our prototype embedded on the page and people can interact with it just like we had in Figma. Okay, so it's really nice to happen like this. But before you do this, right, what you want to do is you want to go up into the cog, you want to go to site information, and then you want to go to view all site settings. And once you're in here, you want to come down to where you have site collection administration, and you want to go to HTML field security, and you want to make sure that you have figma.com in here, okay? If you haven't added it before, it's not going to be there. So just come in here, type in figma.com and click add. You'll see it in this list, and then you're going to click OK. And that basically means that you've told this site that it's okay to embed iframes effectively from Figma. So when you do that, come back to your site, come back to the homepage of your site, and you're just going to want to say new, and we're going to say page, because this is the page that's going to hold our embedded process. So I'll just pick blank for now, and I'll say create page. We'll give the page a title, which will be our UX process. So we have that in there. So now we have our page named up here. And what I'm typically doing these days is I'm just deleting this header out of here, because I like to kind of create my own, really, to be honest. So in here, again, I'll say the same again, our UX process. Now this bit is obviously whatever you want it to be, right? And I'll just put in the subtext in here, view our process below, click each section to learn more. Something like that, right? Change the spelling there so it's right. So basically I'll just style this a little bit then, I think. So I'll center it, and I'll get this bit, and I'll change it to heading 2, center it again, and then I'll increase it to 56, something nice and big like that, make it bold. And this is fine here. So into the interesting bit, right? So to embed our prototype in here, basically what you want to do is you want to add in a web part in here, and you want to go for embed. So we have that here. And now we have an area where we can enter in our embed code. So this is where it gets interesting. So we'll come back over to Figma, and here's the bit that confused me definitely, right? So there's 2 places we can generate an embed code for this, right? So if we have, let's stick it over into prototype, okay? So we have our flow 1 here. So if we can select this, okay? If we click share here, right, we're going to get this box in here. And we can say get embed code, right? And you get this relatively short piece of embed code. This is not the one you want, right? Because when we add in our extra little bit of code to hide the UI, if we add it into this code, it's just not going to work, okay? So forget about this one. What you want to do is you want to basically play your prototype, okay? It's going to pop up like this. And actually what we'll do is we'll change the background of this to white so it's seamless. So I'll exit out of that. We'll set this in here also to white, okay? So that means now when we click our home and we say play, everything's on a white background. That's kind of what we want, okay? But it's within here that we want to generate our embed code. So click here and you'll see share prototype. And now if we click get embed code here, we get this much longer piece of embed code. That's what we want, okay? That's what's going to work. So you're going to copy this, and then we're going to go back over to SharePoint. So in SharePoint, right over here, what we're going to do is we're going to paste in that embed code. We'll give it a second just to recognize. And essentially it comes in like this, okay? So again, what we'll do is we'll select our embed web part and we get the code in here. I'll just drag this down. So basically what I like to do, okay, is I want to hide the Figma footer in here and hide this part here and the frame. So what you're going to want to do, okay, is in here, we'll set the border to 0 and let it reload. And now the border's gone. That's great. And the last thing we want to do is see in here where we have source and we have this basically URL. You're kind of coming down to the end of the URL and you'll see it here by the end of the quotation mark. So basically everything between this and this quotation mark is our URL. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll come right to the end of here and we'll put in the ampersand. We'll say hide dash UI equals 1, okay? And we'll just click outside so it recognizes that we've updated the code and it's going to reload. And now we can see our prototype is in here without any of that Figma fluff surrounding it. So what we're going to do is we're going to publish our page. It's going to load again. And now we have our prototype in here and it'll work just fine. We can come in here. We can have our links to our documents here. We can exit, come back, come in here. And it's pretty seamless, right? It's pretty good. I think it works great, and it's a really nice way to communicate some of these processes and things like that outside of our standard kind of links that we have on pages. So again, I can't stress it enough, okay? So when you're creating that embed code, don't use the share that's in this screen. You got to preview or play your prototype and create the embed code from within here by clicking share prototype and this embed code, okay? This is where we're going to have that and hide dash UI equal to 1. So there you go, that's it. That's how I built that prototype and how I embed it into Figma with their updated Embed Kit 2.0, I believe it's called. Hopefully you found that interesting, and apologies it took me so long to make this video. But if you did like it, if you want to subscribe or like, that would be much appreciated, but no hassle if you don't want to. And until the next video, see ya.